Hello and welcome to the AI and Intelligent Automation Network. I am your host and editor, Seth Adler. Thank you very much for coming in. We have our friends at EdgeVerve giving a great session today, Delivering Business Resilience with RPA in Testing. We've got our friends coming up in a minute, but what we wanted to do first was to ask a few polling questions of you here in the audience. So thank you very much for being with us. Just to give a sense, just to get a sense of who's in the audience and what you would like to talk about and how you're feeling. So, have you implemented RPA in your organization, yes or no? That question is up and ready for you to answer it. Have you implemented RPA in your organization, yes or no? And Shrikant and Vasu, please feel free to participate as well. Have you implemented RPA in your organization, yes or no? Submit that answer, and let's see what they say. 50-50, right down the line. Very interesting. Not expected. Not an expected result. Okay. Have you identified opportunities that can be complemented by traditional automation technologies? Have you identified opportunities that can be complemented by traditional automation challenges? So go ahead and answer yes or no. Have you identified opportunities that can be complemented by traditional automation challenges? I've submitted my answer. Shrikant and Vasu can do the same, and maybe we didn't record that one. Let's try that again. Again, 50-50. Maybe the polling software isn't working like we'd like it to. Just two more questions for you. Is your enterprise focusing on increased test coverage? That's really what we're here for, right? So is your enterprise focusing on increased test coverage? Yes or no? Simply yes or no. Is your enterprise focusing on increased test coverage? Let's see what folks say. 100% yes. So obviously we're speaking to the right audience. Do you work? Last question we promised. Do you work on heterogeneous technologies, which is making automation scripts maintenance costly? Yes, no, or type your answer here. So I guess that's a maybe. That should be a maybe there. Do you work on heterogeneous technologies, which is making automation scripts maintenance costly? Yes or no? Submit your answer. And yeah, we didn't do that one right. We'll try it again. And aha, no. So you do not work on heterogeneous technologies, which is making automation script maintenance costly. So a mixed bag of results, gentlemen. We've got from Infosys, the AVP and delivery head of Infosys Validation Solutions, Vasu Naidu. And we've got my old friend, Shrikant Deo, the associate director and lead product management for EdgeVerve. And so I will, at this point, hand it over to Vasu to take you through the first part of the session. Vasu?
Thank you so much, Seth. Good morning and good evening, everyone. And I'm Vasu. I head the specialized testing solutions for Infosys globally. Warm welcome and thank you for joining this special session on AssistEdge. This hour, we will be exploring the possibilities of using RPA for enterprise test automation. We in Infosys have been significantly investing in the use of cognitive technologies for testing over the last 3 years. Our objective has been to move our clients from automation to more autonomous. What it means is the use of algorithms which can manage by itself to a large extent. Based on my experience working with several clients, what I've learned is it is possible to make hyper-automation work by harnessing the power of RPA, ML, and AI as well. What I mean by hyper-automation is nothing but making end-to-end automation possible. When I say end-to-end automation is essentially making all the heterogeneous systems talk to each other so that you can achieve the best automation or what we call as enterprise test automation that is possible. So for better understanding, let me take you through the history of how automation has evolved over years so that you can better appreciate why we need to adopt these cognitive capabilities, especially in enterprise test automation. If you remember 20 years back when we started using web applications, we started using Windrunner or Rational or Silk test, which were more of a screen scraping or a record and playback type of tools. Those days technologies were quite primitive, so complexities were lower, but still there was a lot of maintenance that was involved. And you can see some of those in this particular slide as well. As the technologies advanced, there was Silverlight, which had Ajax, which was an embedded software on top of your regular software screens. Then we had Adobe Flex and many other technologies which created complexities for these tools. And then WinRunner or many of these UFT, which evolved into UFT, Rational, and many of them started creating newer languages, advanced features, which could enable you to do automation even with this help of, even when there are embedded objects. Then came the integration with other legacy applications like AS400, mainframes, package applications, and these tools started struggling again. And then came the multi-browser, newer operating system, open source objects, open source solutions. All these complexities created a lot of maintenance, and like you see, there was increased amount of coding that you are supposed to do. You have to support multiple browsers. You have to identify a lot of data grids and tables that are embedded. And QA organizations struggled a lot in ensuring that they can achieve this end-to-end automation. And what it resulted is they created a dozen of framework using many different tools. Like they purchased on-the-shelf products, they built their own open source framework, they made them to talk to each other. And all this created a significant amount of overhead in maintenance. It was not stable. It also required skilled resources so that they could maintain and achieve the best output from these scripting languages. So what is the answer for this? And then Gartner has rightly predicted that by 2024, the automation market will hit around $28 billion. And RPA will play a very major role according to me. And then based on my experience so far, like I said, working with several clients of ours, we see a significant shift in the way you can use the cognitive capabilities, right from RPA powered with several other cognitive technologies like AI, ML, neural networks, computer vision, and several integrations will make automation, end-to-end automation or hyper automation, intelligent automation, we call it with several names, quite a possibility. So what makes, according to me, what makes this RPA such a powerful tool is essentially driven by the principles based on which the RPA works. So RPA essentially works on code-free automation. By itself, it is a low-code development approach, which removes the need for very high-skilled resources. Secondly, it has a very superior object recognition capabilities like advanced OCR. It can extract unstructured or semi-structured information from images. It also uses the sentiment analysis, so it can understand and it can identify based on the text what the user is feeling. It also comes with an orchestrator, which essentially helps, especially when we have to make unattended automation work, when we have to make end-to-end automation work, when it is connecting from, say, a mainframe to a web app to package application, and then there is a workflow that is making the data flow from one system to another system. So this makes this RPA tools extremely powerful, and not just by tool itself, but it also its capability of extending it to all other technologies that exist today, which can be brought in board to make these automation extremely powerful. So with this background, I would hand it over to Srikanth, my colleague from our AssistEdge team. He will walk us through the details of how AssistEdge has evolved, how AssistEdge as a tool will help us in achieving whatever I talked about, and ensuring that automation gives the maximum results in any heterogeneous environment, and the features that we are bringing in our roadmap, which will make it a very, very superior tool for doing any sort of enterprise automation, and it will really wow the QA organizations as we move forward. Over to you, Shrikant.
Sure. Thanks, Vasu. Thanks for that insightful introduction. And hi, everyone. I hope I'm audible clearly. So my name is Shrikant Dev. I'm part of the product management organization within EdgeVerve. And as Vasu mentioned, essentially RPA has sort of been introduced into the testing automations market recently, but it has already taken a lot of kind of ground in terms of testing automation. So before we talk about AssistEdge RPA, which is the EdgeVerve's tool of process automation, the testing version of it, let me just take a few minutes on introducing the AssistEdge product itself. So AssistEdge is the process automation platform from EdgeVerve, and it's been in this process automation space for more than 10 years now, even before the RPA term sort of came into prominence recently. What we have done in this automation space is we started out with the attended automation primary capabilities, essentially earlier starting with the customer service, very soon moving into the other use cases around back office automation as well. And just to give a very glimpse of more than 350 plus active enterprise customers that we today have on this AssistEdge platform, you can see that this list of customers logos that we have put out it is across the verticals, and which is understandable given that the RPA or the process automation is a fairly horizontal field, and practically every vertical needs a lot of process automation, and we also have presence in practically all the major verticals here. The second more important thing, I think, which I would like to highlight, which comes out very clearly from these logos that are highlighted here, is our focus around enterprise customers. As you can see, most of these are pretty large organizations, and those who have already, have been investing in the process automation for a significant time. And as I will talk about also in future, focus has always been about providing the value to our clients through the process automation. So we do not just stop at just selling a license and moving away. Our I think our key differentiator is always about how we have been able to successfully deliver value to our clients. And which is why it is not a surprise that 94% of our customers continue to be our customers. We have a very high customer retention rate. And in addition to these enterprise customers, we also have a very robust community that we have built up of more than 10,000 students, professionals, and developers who have been sort of using our free communication to learn RPA and to build their own automations. Okay? And the reason why I said why we are a choice of enterprise customers when it comes to RPA or when it comes to process automation in general is because we have proven our capabilities of delivering automation at scale. Okay? And there are many examples that I can quote, just to quote a couple of them. For a large telecom customer based in US, we have today close to about 50,000 attended bots in action. Okay. Similarly, for a very large electronics manufacturer based in Europe, we have 550 plus unattended bots, and even this number I think is a bit old. We are close to about 700 bots today. But more importantly, I think more than these numbers, what it conveys is the value that we have been able to add. And just to talk about large electronics manufacturers that I mentioned, they have completely revamped and redesigned their finance operations with automation as the focus. Okay, and we have recently published a third-party report that Forrester had come up explaining how the customer has got a value close to about $30 million from this automation that we were able to execute. So the point is, we, as I said, we are not a pure license player, sort of the player, but instead we focus on delivering value from the automation for our customers. And that's quite evident from the kind of benefits that our customers have got from their RPA journeys. And this, again, is sort of validated by the analysts ranked us consistently at a very high position. Okay, Forrester, for example, in their last RPA wave, rated RPA as the leader in the RPA space. But just to complement, as I said, we do not look at process automation as only as an RPA sort of space, but instead we look at the entire automation journey of the customer. And hence, we very early at the stage, we realized that discovering new automation candidates is equally important for our clients, and which is why we got into the process discovery space. In fact, we actually pioneered that space a couple of years back. And it is no wonder that when the first ever analyst rankings of process discovery and mining tools came up earlier this year by Nelson Hall, we were placed as the #1 leader in this space. And just to complement the process discovery and automation capabilities of EdgeVerve, we have also been ranked as the leader in the side. Okay? So essentially completing the entire capabilities and the offerings that have to our clients, which starts with the process discovery, providing the RPA product, and then delivering value through our services. And in all of that, we have been ranked as the leaders by the analysts consistently. So now, and the reason why that is again, just to sort of rephrase some of the things, is one is our enterprise orientation. Second is about having a complete cohesive platform that starts right from the discovery to the actual automation and to orchestration of the human and digital workers, offering multiple commercial models for our customers. And this is something which we will be able to do even in the testing automation space. Okay? We have multiple commercial offerings, and the reason why we are able to do that is because we combine the power of a product license as well as the services. And because of which we have done multiple deals with our clients, wherein we have actually taken an outcome-based pricing. Okay? So essentially the customer pays us only when they realize the value. Okay? So that's the kind of models that we have been able to propose to our customers. And one of the key differentiators that we have also taken to the market is our native artificial intelligence capabilities. Okay? As most of you know, process automation is very quickly moving from a deterministic RPA to a more advanced intelligent automation. And because we bring in most of these intelligence capabilities natively, it's much easier for our clients to move on from a deterministic to intelligent automation. And again, as I will point out later also, all of this has a significant impact on our test automation capabilities as well. Okay? So getting on to the test automation, as I mentioned, RPA getting into test automation is a relatively recent phenomenon. It has been started for about last a year or so. But the reason I think it has started, as Vasu also sort of elaborated in his part, is that the traditional test automation tools were primarily script-based. They were primarily technical testing tools. Okay? And whereas there was a lot of other areas within testing, which things like business-centric testing, or having the codeless testing being available for non-technical users. I think many of these spaces have resulted in people looking at RPA tools for testing automation. And we also realized this pretty soon, because we have very good friends with our Infosys validation solutions who work with us to build these AssistEdge testing version precisely to tackle some of these challenges that they saw, okay, in the test automation. So when we started building the AssistEdge testing version, our focus was to build a business-centric test automation tool, which is technology agnostic, which means that every time you encounter a new application or a new technology, you should not get stuck writing scripts around those technologies. You should be able to create digital testers who can do testing 24/7 without too much intervention and too much monitoring. And finally, that test automation and testing has to be codeless. So we essentially applied all these and followed all these principles when we created our current our AssistEdge testing automation tool. Okay? The use cases what we have been tackling since we have released this version of test automation is one is around the lifecycle test automation, which essentially is taking the business flow. So rather than just looking at the technology specific test, we have looked at it from a business angle, and we have looked at the business flow automation. Similarly, another area which often gets missed in the traditional test automation is the test data management. And as many of you would have been involved in application testing would realize, very significant manual activity. Okay? And with the help of RPA, you can actually automate a lot of this test data management. So we have had capabilities in AssistEdge so that you can actually do this automated test data management. Another challenge which we have overcome using AssistEdge is the Citrix and legacy automation testing. Because we have surface automation as one of the capabilities which does not really depend on the technology, we can actually automate many of these legacy or old applications which could not be automated earlier. Similarly, with our AI capabilities, we can also handle a lot of unstructured data and specifically the documents that can be from where the data can be extracted. And all of that helps in automating a lot of UAT, the user acceptance testing. So some of these areas which were not covered in the traditional automation have been now been able to convert into an automated test suite using the AssistEdge RPA. And all of this essentially brings very significant benefits to any organization that is looking at AssistEdge RPA as a solution for test automation. The first and foremost is because we include a lot of business-centric testing into the scope of automation, and also bring out a lot of unstructured data processing and also the business or user acceptance testing also into the automation scope. With RPA, you now can actually think about almost 100% test coverage or test automation coverage. Okay, that's, I think, is one of the most significant benefit that AssistEdge offers when you look at AssistEdge RPA as the test automation tool. In addition to that, AssistEdge uniquely brings some very ready-made reusable bots as part of our AssistEdge marketplace. So irrespective of which, for example, test management interface that you are using or the DevOps tool that you are using, when you are trying to integrate the test automation with your existing setup, most of these integration components are already available in our AssistEdge marketplace. It's a simple drag and drop, and you can start using those components as well. And similarly, as I mentioned, our processing ensures that even if your test data creation or your testing includes a lot of handling of documents, you can automate that part as well using our advanced document extraction capabilities. So with all of this, essentially what AssistEdge can provide is a significant uplift from your existing or traditional test automation to almost near 100% automated testing. Okay? And what we have also done is we have done very close, tighter integrations with your existing test management tools. So whether you are using a Jira or an ALM for your requirements management or the test management interfaces, we can integrate with those very easily. And similarly, we can also do an end-to-end DevOps integration, which means that if you are creating daily build and you want to ensure that with those daily builds are getting tested on a regular basis, on a daily basis before they get checked in, all of it done using AssistEdge because we have done that very close integration with DevOps. AssistEdge provides the right platform or the right product for you when you are looking at improving your existing test automation, or if you are starting on your test automation journey, we would strongly encourage you to look at AssistEdge RPA as your single test automation suite. Okay? While we have developed a lot of these capabilities as part of our existing test automation version, obviously we don't want to stop here. Okay? We see a huge sort of in improving the test automation even further. Okay, so just to give an example, while we have created a very robust and very interactive sort of testing tool, we also believe that there is a scope for attended testing. So today, most of our what we have done through RPA is in unattended manner, but we also believe that when certain use cases are being tested, they need to be tested by the humans, but there is a scope even to further automate even those testing using the attended automation capabilities that we have. So that's one area where we are looking at very closely and investing further. But more importantly, as we go beyond the mid next year, we want to actually build a lot of intelligence capabilities into the test automation. So for example, we are looking at our existing discovery tool to see how it can help the testing professionals identify automation candidates, or even look at how the testing is done today and how it can be further improved. For another example is how we can use our machine learning capabilities to predict the testing failures, okay, or the chances of testing test cases not completing successfully, and also finding out the reasons behind it. So a lot of our focus is bringing those AI capabilities into the test automation and making the test automation more and more more and more intelligent in nature, and also more and more advanced in nature, so that the testing can move from becoming a sort of a routine, repetitive job to actually adding value to the organization. Okay? So with this, I think it's time for us to look at a very interesting success story, what we have achieved using AssistEdge RPA in the testing space. And to cover that, I would like to invite Vasu back to cover this success story. Vasu?
Sure. Thank you so much, Shrikant. And thank you for sharing the details. In fact, I would say we're pretty excited about the journey that we are embarking on. We as testing organizations are very excited to see the level of automation that is made possible. And harnessing these technologies really helps us in achieving the key parameters any testing quality engineering organization would be looking forward for. See, one of the examples that we want to share while we have started using it across multiple clients, but one of the first few examples that we have used it very successfully is for a financial institution, a bank. They were generating tons of invoices, and they were doing it manually. They were PDF documents. They needed automation for it. They needed a tool which could recognize the tables, the embedded objects in the PDF, accurately extract that information, and validate these invoices for a specific set of information in it, right from the banners to the tables to the objects to several other tags that were very, very specific to these invoices. So what we did was, and couple of examples that I talked about in the beginning of the session is the need for a tool which can have advanced object recognition capabilities is extremely important for us to make hyper-automation possible, because we are dealing with a significant number of heterogeneous technology integration and the architecture by itself. And PDF is a good example where it's completely imaged, and many of the traditional tools fail to recognize the objects in many places. And that's where the advanced OCR technologies that is used within the RPA tool and specifically in AssistEdge came handy. We could there were a variety of invoice documents that existed. We were able to use RPA to identify these objects, and we continuously repeated to check whether there will be failure points. And then we were very successful in ensuring that it can recognize every single object, even though we inputted several different type of failure points or negative test cases. And these bots were able to recognize the objects extremely well. And then after we did this automation of several different type of invoices, the next challenge that we had in the test environment was orchestrating the batch jobs, because there were several batch jobs which has to run to generate these invoices itself. It was a very complex setup in the test environment. So what we needed was, and also the important point that I want to specify here is the batch jobs used to stop after, say, 150 invoice generation, and sometimes at 300 invoice generation, and we had to manually go and restart the process so that it completes the required number of thousands of invoices that we needed. And we created a bunch of bots it's some sort of a self-healing bots which will fix the issues that existed in the execution of these batch jobs. And these unattended self-healing bots actually did the trick for us. It could execute these jobs in a way that it completes all the batch jobs in an unattended way, which helped in creation of these invoices. And of course, it saved significant amount of time. What used to take almost 3 days to generate these invoices came down to 2.5 hours, which is a significant saving, I would say. And these are the type of savings any QA organizations would be looking for. And also, please remember that this is without coding. And like I said, it's a low-code platform. You don't need advanced skills, and it's a one-time setup. Modification of the requirements is extremely easy to reorchestrate the microbots, which makes it a very, very powerful tool when it comes to enterprise test automation. The third aspect was the data itself. Shrikant talked about the need for significant amount of test data for any such domain. You would need tons and tons of data to generate these invoices. So we created a set of bots which could synthetically generate the data. All that you needed was the data sheets that you will give it as inputs, which will essentially a bunch of rules which will guide these bots in terms of how they need to create the data that is necessary for generating these invoices. So it was very, very successful. I would say test data plays an extremely important role, especially when you are actually running agile sprints, when you are having DevOps pipelines. Majority of the time we fail to achieve the number of sprints that you want to run only because you're not able to run regression test cases because you do not have because you do not have sufficient test data to execute this test. And there is also significant amount of failures in test cases because you do not have the right combination of data that is necessary for you to execute this test. So this synthetic data generation bots helped us significantly to solve this problem. It was a big gain to further shorten the cycle time. You don't have to wait for manually creating this data or extracting the data from production and then generating the invoices, running the batch jobs, and then recognizing the images on the PDF, conforming to the requirements. Everything has been automated so far. The next step that we took in the automation process was this whole reconciliation of these invoices from where you inputted to what was generated as an output. The business team took this activity very seriously because they wanted to ensure that whatever processes has been put in place is creating the invoices that could be reconciled to the dollar value. That was done manually before. We took that as a fourth step in our automation process. We could clearly recognize that you don't have to manually do this reconciliation process. So we created bots again, which could clearly give the traceability of these invoices to every dollar value to the end users, so that they can see that whatever invoices that are getting generated could be reconciled to the invoice documents that has got generated. Now with these 4 steps, you imagine doing it manually, which has been completely automated. Now the fifth important step is the orchestrator itself. How do you orchestrate all these steps in an automated fashion, right? From the first step of data generation, then running the batch jobs, creating these invoices, going through these invoices, automating the every step of recognizing the objects in these PDF documents, generating the result files, giving you an output that says that what has happened to these invoices, and every single test case could be automated through this help of this orchestrator. I mean, if I can recap, there were 5 steps. The first step was to recognize the objects and test the PDFs, doing the reconciliation, creating the data, orchestration of all these activities, and such a powerful thing for a tester. What would take days could be done in few hours. And if you could go in an order, it covers all aspects. The reason why I picked this example is because it covers all aspects that a tester always have struggled: recognizing the right objects, self-healing, ensuring that it is unattended, ensuring that you can do reconciliation that could help the business users get the confidence, and at the same time orchestrating the end-to-end execution of these test cases. Traditionally, we would have used a separate tool for batch job automation. We would have used a separate tool for PDF recognition. We would have used a separate tool for synthetic data generation, and again a separate tool which will orchestrate all this. Now we could achieve everything in one single tool, AssistEdge, which is essentially the power that any of these RPA tools that can bring in. We have several such examples where you have, say, embedded chatbot that you want to test. If a user keys in, there are natural language processing capabilities that is required to go through a certain set of text that you want to validate. You have advanced type of data analytics that you have to analyze. Sometimes you have graphs, sometimes you have bar charts that you want to validate. You have certain colored indicators in these graphs that you want to validate. These are some of the very complex situations that we come across as a tester, and especially when you are testing a package application like, say, SAP S/4HANA or Oracle Fusion or Salesforce.com. There are a significant number of objects that are not recognized by traditional tools. And not just that, there are several graphs, there are workflows, there are external calls that you have to do. All this makes it extremely complex when you have to do end-to-end automation, and we have been very successful in ensuring that it is possible with the help of AssistEdge. We are very, very excited because of its strength. You saw the roadmap that Shrikant talked about. We work with more than 800 odd different clients, especially when it comes to testing and quality engineering. We collect inputs on a very regular basis in terms of the failure points, the challenges that we face with traditional Selenium type of automation or use of any other traditional toolings and open source. We give those inputs back to our product teams. We share with our partners, which actually becomes a very critical input which feeds into this roadmap, which is making this tool a very, very powerful tool. And we are very excited about the journey that we look forward for. So the client is very happy, and we have many examples like that. Please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to share those details and make you speak to some of our customers that will probably give you the confidence that you are looking for. And I am very confident that we as a team will be able to make this hyper-automation not just an imaginary thing, but quite possible. And then we have seen successes in many other engagements as well. So with that, I will pause and I'll probably go to the next section. Over to you, Seth.
Excellent. Yeah, let's do the Q&A. Thank you so much, Shrikant and Vasu. We've got a number of questions. I'll go ahead and ask them, I guess, in order. The first one is, hi, Shrikant. First of all, thanks for this valuable session. I understand this is for large-scale test automation. Let me go. But does it mean it's not a right fit for automating day-to-day testing at a small scale? If yes, is it due to cost aspect or anything else? So there's a number of questions there. Shrikant, what would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, yeah, thanks for asking. It's a valid, very relevant question. So the answer is no, it is not just for large scale testing. It is obviously definitely can be used and can be utilized for small day-to-day testing as well. In fact, we have actually done work within Infosys where a lot of day-to-day work, which is in the form of testing that people do, have been automated, and which is why one of the things that I talked about is the attended automation, which so far has not picked steam in the testing space, but we have already seen it picking a lot of ground in the other process automation space. So what we believe is that after the typical standard large-scale opportunities are exhausted, very soon people will start turning towards, as you rightly said, simple day-to-day small testing assignments that could be automated. And that is where we believe that in addition to the unattended, the attended automation will play a lot of role. But yes, even today, you can definitely automate your day-to-day testing with RPA and with AssistEdge.
Okay, great. This next question came in, Vasu, when you were speaking, when you were giving that case study there at the end. So did this process involve OCR? If yes, how was the data extracted, validated? And how can this be fully unattended?
Okay, so there are two parts to this question. So the first part is yes, the RPA tool sets within AssistEdge uses the OCR capability to extract the image information. We usually compare it with a standard set, which is essentially the standard invoice templates that we get. We actually, since we synthetically generated the data that would be used for creating these invoices, we know what type of values are coming into what type of grids and what type of, like there can be a name field, there can be address field, there can be invoice detail field, there can be many other detailed sections of the invoice which runs into pages. So we know exactly what a standard invoice would have, and we would create the tests in a way that the bots extract the information from the actual invoice and compares it with the templates that we would have. So that's how we actually use the OCR capabilities that is built in within the AssistEdge tool, and then we use that for comparison of the PDF documents. And when it comes to unattended, we use this in the batch job execution. But of course, even the invoice comparison was also unattended because of the orchestration engine that exists. We create a series of bots based on the test cases, and then the orchestrator executes it in an unattended way. And the batch job execution was also in an unattended way because we had identified the type of failures that happens during the execution of these bad jobs, and that helped in achieving the unattended execution of bad jobs as well.
Okay, great.
Hope that answered.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, this is the last question here because we're running up against the clock. May I know how it differs from other RPA tools in the market? This person mentions one. I'm going to, leave it to you to mention any brand names that you'd like. We might have lost the feed.
Yeah, I will take that.
Great.
Yeah, I will take that. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, as I mentioned, a lot of RPA tools are trying to get into this test automation market as well. But a couple of things that I wanted to mention when comparing AssistEdge as with respect to the other RPA in testing automation specifically. The first and foremost, as I said, we are quite fortunate that we belong to the Infosys family, and as such, we have access to our friends within the Infosys validation solutions. And what that helps us, as Vasu also mentioned a couple of times, is that we work very closely with each other. So we have a huge domain knowledge in testing in the form of our IVS friends who help us in basically understanding what are the challenges with the traditional test automation and how do we bridge that with RPA. And as such, the AssistEdge RPA in the test automation has built a lot of features which help in the test automation specifically. And it's not just today, even in the future, we are very confident that we will always be able to maintain and be ahead of that curve when it comes to innovation in test automation, because we have access to such a large domain expertise and because we also have a very strong R&D background. Having said that, I think the other key differentiator that I would wanted to mention is our enterprise focus, which is while it applies to test automation, but it is also applied to the generic process automation. We bring in a lot of enterprise-specific capabilities, whether it is in terms of security, whether it is in terms of scalability, or whether it is in terms of the reliability of our bots. And all of these have been validated, not just by us, but by our clients and by our analysts, who have always rated us as the top when it comes to the enterprise-grade features. So I think without getting into too much details, I think I would call out those two things. One is the domain expertise, and the other is the enterprise-grade features. It sets us apart from any other RPA tool.
Okay, and we've had 2 late questions come in, so we are going to go over time, and so that we can get these questions answered. RPA is predominantly UI automation. Can we leverage that for API DB testing?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, while RPA has been traditionally looked at as UI automation, but in fact, most of the RPA tools, and specifically AssistEdge, do provide you integration capabilities with APIs and even database. In fact, AssistEdge RPA in its studio has specific connect to the APIs as well as connect to the multiple databases, multiple DBMS systems that we have. So yes, you can not only do testing automation using UI, but also connect to APIs or also connect directly to the database to extract or to load data.
Great. All right, this will be the last question. Vasu?
Just to add on, that's the only way to make the end-to-end automation, which we recently call it as hyper-automation, possible. So,
yep.
There we go. That's why we're all here, 100%. All right, this, I think, will be the last question. Clients have already invested a lot with traditional automation tools for testing. What is the value proposition that we can go with the RPA tool? What is the value proposition that we can go with RPA tool? So that's how the sentence is structured.
I'll take that question. So this is a typical question that comes to us always, that majority of our customers have invested heavily in building dozens of automation frameworks already. So there is always a question of, hey, how can we just throw it away and start using a new tool in the market? And many of them have challenged us saying that, hey, you have a shiny tool around and you want to start using it. So what is my ROI? So one thing that we've always gone back and proved that it is very, very important that we follow through with the technology advancement that is happening and use these latest cognitive capabilities in test automation, because that makes everybody's life simpler. Secondly, we would not encourage any of our clients to just throw away what they already have. What we normally do is go through a life cycle. Each of these automation scripts have a certain maintenance window, certain life cycle that as the applications are advancing, you will have to sunset some of them. So what we do is we create a way in which we can migrate the existing set of automation frameworks to use the cognitive capabilities through RPA. So we have, in many of the cases, we start using RPA for the new set of automation scripting that we have to do, and then slowly backward integrating them to all the existing automation frameworks that exist, so that today you can execute them. But as we make progress and wherever there is ROI for using new scripting using RPA so that we can sunset the old frameworks, we create that roadmap, and we'll ensure that we do not repeat creation of these scripts again, but whereas strengthen the existing automation frameworks with the help of RPA and ensure that end-to-end automation is possible in the minimal investment that is possible.
Excellent. All right, we do have more questions, so we're just going to keep going. Do you have any plan to have a webinar or demo to show AssistEdge use? And is there any trial version available for those who want to learn and try?
Yeah, so I think Divya will have to answer about the webinar, but I can definitely answer the trial version part. Yes, in fact, we have a community which is freely available. You can go to our website, assistedge.com or edgeverve.com/assistedge. And from there, you can navigate to community and you will get a freely available community version for download.
Excellent. All right, here we go. We had one more here. Does it recognize human written or scribbled invoices? On the way out, a nice, good, specific question, right?
Yeah, I will take that, Vasu. So yeah, I mean, definitely, as Vasu mentioned, even in the case study that we have a pretty strong OCR capabilities, and we do that with our own native capabilities, which are in the form of a platform called .ai. But as required, we also can integrate with external providers. We have a very close partnership with Abby, which is one of the leading OCR tools. And one of the capabilities that both .ai as well as Abby have is what is called as an ICR, which is essentially intelligent character recognition, which allows you to a certain extent, capture the human sort of written notes on top of invoices or on top of any document. But of course, any tool has its own limitations, and especially when it comes to the human handwriting, there are always challenges when it comes to when the handwriting is pretty bad or when it overlaps with either a typed text or other text. So yes, we do have certain capabilities in recognizing human sort of handwriting, but of course it will have limitations. I won't say that it is 100% right.
Right, but sometimes the problem is the human. Let's remember. Is AssistEdge licensing cost for testing lesser than process automation?
Yeah, I mean, we have, as I said, we have multiple commercial models which are available, which go down to even to the level that the customers will pay us only when they see the value. So yes, there are different commercial models. Even testing automation has its own variety of commercial models, different pricing based on the situation. So yeah, I think we will be able to sort of talk about specific examples.
Okay, excellent. I think This time we actually did it. We're going to tiptoe away from the Q&A box. Really appreciate everybody in attendance for being here, for your time. And of course, for those that ask questions, thank you for your questions. We appreciate them. Which brings me to you, Vasu and Shrikant. Thank you so much for your insight. Very much appreciate your time answering questions so deftly. Really appreciate, as always, working with EdgeVerve and Infosys. And we're looking forward to seeing you down the line, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.